Hey everyone, my name is Ben Chaish, and this is a camera that I have been looking forward to and sort of just hoping would exist for the past couple years. And after about a week or so of testing, I have a lot of thoughts and am just really excited to talk about. And that is the Fujifilm GFX50SII. Now, before I get started, I want to say a massive thank you to my friends at Moment. They are the ones that were able to get me a copy of this camera to use for about a week or so, kind of put it through some paces and all that kind of stuff. I definitely don't get to keep this camera. It's not mine. I will be sending it back probably next week or something like that. But for what it's worth, definitely a huge thank you to Moment and to Fujifilm for the access to a camera that I would definitely not have access to otherwise. And if you want to sort of help me do more things like this in the future, I'll leave a link below that is both an affiliate link to me and also the way that you can pre-order it through Moment. So you can either pre-order the camera or the lens through Moment. I'll get a tiny, small commission. And I don't know, Fuji and Moment might like me and think that I should do more stuff like this. So anyway, if you're interested, I will definitely drop links to this below in the description. Right off the bat, you will notice that this body is, if you are into Fujifilm cameras, pretty much the exact same body as the GFX100S. While I don't actually have a 100S, it legitimately just seems like this is a direct, not copy, but they probably honestly just using the exact same body, all the same components. The only real difference that I can see from my time using this camera and then my experience just kind of playing with the 100S, honestly, is just where it says GFX50S2 on the side. So before I even jump into all the specs and talk about my sort of experience using this, I think obviously the biggest thing to mention in this whole thing is just the overall cost, which is incredibly inexpensive considering what this camera is and all the features it packs in. So I've been told, and I haven't actually been able to watch the announcement because I'm getting this out before the announcement. So if this is incorrect, my apologies. I'll definitely put any sort of corrections I need to down in a pinned comment and probably in the description. But from the information that I have right now, the body only is gonna come in at $39.99, so right under $4,000, which is honestly, for me, a fantastic value for a brand new medium format camera. And then you can pair this camera with this lens for only another 500 bucks. Honestly, for like a travel setup, even for like a backup lens, I'm definitely considering if I do end up purchasing this combo to just have this lens. So I think while yes, I would like a wider focal length that was more of a 24 equivalent, to maybe, again, like a 24-70 kind of equivalent. Having such a quality lens that is so lightweight, and I think it's brilliant that they were able to make this compact down like this for a good travel setup. Makes a lot of sense. So for about 4,500 bucks, you're getting a medium format camera with a decent zoom range, great for, again, just kind of everyday stuff, for landscapes, for product things, for studio stuff. Honestly, I think it's a great value. Pairing these things together, getting a medium format lens for 500 bucks is just stupid cheap. So I really like what Fuji is doing to make their medium format system much more approachable and affordable to a lot of people out there. So right off the bat, this camera continues with the GFX50 naming, meaning that the sensor in here, which is big and beautiful, that large 44 by 33 millimeter sensor, is still the exact same sensor that was in the original 50S and the 50R. And I believe it's the same sensor that is in the Hasselblad like 907X and the X1D and X1D2. So all these cameras are still sharing that exact same sensor. But what is different, obviously, about this camera is a few really important things that work alongside that sensor to make it just a more unique and interesting and more usable camera. So the thing that they've kind of paired with that sensor are a couple new things that are unique to this body in particular, and that is the X Processor 4, which is going to be able to read out the sensor a lot faster than the original 50S, as well as really improve the autofocus. They definitely have changed the algorithms. And just having that processor be able to scan the sensor quicker. I believe it says here that the sensor readout speeds have been boosted from 130 frames per second on the GFX50S, the original one, to 250 frames per second, which makes the response time and the autofocus and everything like that a lot quicker. I will say it's still a contrast-based autofocus, so you're not getting that phase detect that you're getting in some of the other cameras, so it's not going to be just like lightning fast. But I will say that I feel like the face detect, the eye detect, and just the general quickness of focus is better than on my version of the 50S. So it's not gonna blow you away with your, autofocusing and stuff like that. But I will say, I have not used the 100S extensively, and so this is definitely the best medium format camera that I have used to date in terms of focusing. And the way that I personally use these cameras anyway, it's great, plenty fast for my use case. And so I feel like that processor and those new autofocus algorithms are doing their job. So with that, you're still getting, since it's the same sensor, you're still getting 14-bit RAW files, you're still getting about 3 frames per second, which for someone like me and my use case is, I never even turn it to like the quick burst mode for any of my cameras. So not a big deal to me on either of those things. But I think the biggest thing that was most apparent as soon as I picked up this camera and mounted the lens that I typically use, which is this Midicon 65 1.4, was the in-body image stabilization, or IBIS. So when I first got the camera, I had no specs. I was given the camera, the box that it comes in, which looks like a production box and everything like that, but it had no actual specs. So I just had to actually, take some photos and put them on my computer and go, oh, it's 50 megapixels and just all those things. I'd heard rumors about things like IBIS, but I wasn't sure. And as soon as I put the camera up to my face and, turned on the camera and saw how the viewfinder was working, you could very, very obviously tell that there was a significant IBIS happening in here. And I was legitimately just shocked at how good it is. So using this lens, I just kind of dumped my shutter speed down to a low shutter speed that I thought, this would be kind of impressive, that if I could get something that would be tack sharp. So I took a photo at 35 millimeters, which again is like a 28 equivalent, at about 1/4 of a second, totally sharp. Took it at 1/2 second, totally sharp. Took it at a full second, totally sharp. Took it at 2 seconds, totally sharp. Took it at 2.5 seconds, still totally sharp. So at that point, I didn't even keep going because I was just incredibly impressed with how good the image stabilization is. And I've come to find out that they are rating the image stabilization at 6.5 stops, which I'm not like a big camera nerd that knows all of the IBIS settings for every camera, but 6.5 seems fairly significant. And in practice, it worked fantastic. The other thing is I used this at 35 and then zoomed into 70 and was really, really easily able to make images that were tack sharp at 1/2 second, which at like a 55-ish focal length, 70 millimeters on the GFX, I mean, that's pretty impressive. Definitely means that if you're in a scenario where you don't have a tripod or something like that, like I feel like I could do some like handheld star photos and things like that if I had a lens that was a little bit faster than like a 4.5 aperture. And then one of the other bonuses about just having that new image processor, which I believe is from probably like the X-T4 and that kind of line of Fuji's cameras, is you do get that nostalgic negative film profile. While I use my own presets, on all of my work and everything like that. It is cool that you just have the option if I just wanted to burn through some stuff. And I do like the nostalgic neg profile, so it's definitely a nice little thing to have here, especially, you know, to give some quick previews to clients or things like that. So overall, pretty sweet deal. And one of the other things that was super apparent when I first picked up the camera is I could not really tell if the viewfinder was a higher resolution or not. I've actually come to find out that it is the same resolution, but I don't know if it's just the size of the viewfinder or what it actually is, but in practice, the viewfinder itself feels a lot sharper, which for someone who shoots a lot of shallow depth of field and things like that on this GFX system, and I shoot a lot of manual focus and everything, I felt like it was a lot sharper, meaning that it was a lot easier to nail focus on. It felt like the refresh rate was faster, but I could be totally wrong with that. That was just my impressions without knowing a ton of the specs about the viewfinder. So I will say that I do think that the overall shooting experience in terms of the IBIS and the viewfinder were definitely better. You can definitely see that there are a lot of differences in the buttons and the button layouts and even the size here. So a lot of it's gonna come down to preference. And I think while I didn't really like kind of where some of these buttons were as I was shooting it, I think it was just more because I've gotten used to the 50S body and the button layouts. And again, Fuji has a lot of customizable buttons and they do a really, really good job in their menus with the ability to change things up to kind of customize to your own needs. So I think it's more of a me just getting used to it than anything else. So thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions about this camera or this lens or comparing it to the original 50S or anything, please drop them in the comments below. I will definitely be making a full review of this camera, a comparison video between the two models, as well as a review of the lens. So any questions that you might have out there for me to answer, I would be glad to try to make something work in one of those future videos. So subscribe if you aren't already, and I will see you guys on one of those next ones.